नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामिन् इति नामिने
नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी इति नामिने।
नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी असत्यादिशतारिणे
नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यादिशतारिणे।
जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौर भक्तवृंद।
जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद।
हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे।
हरे
Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama,
राम
Rama
राम
Rama,
हरे
Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण
Krishna, Hare Hare,
हरे
Hare Rama, Hare Rama,
राम
Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे.
Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada.
प्रभुपदा प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा.
हरे नाम संकीर्तन की जय श्री प्रभुपाद की। ओम ज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानञ्जनं तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगना रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगना ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gauratushe Namaha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamani Hari Priya Vanchakalpatarubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna. Okay, can we revise a few points from yesterday's discussions?
It really doesn't matter how we came into this material existence. It's akin to a mosquito biting a person. We don't want to chase down which mosquito bit us, and it's also akin to someone pushing us out from a ship. We don't want to know who pushed us out. Rather, we want to take advantage of the situation and get back to Godhead.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Somebody else?
Because living entity misidentifies himself with the body, he undergoes suffering and happiness.
Okay, good.
Jiva wants to enjoy in three modes of material nature, and that itself is a cause of his suffering and happiness.
Okay.
There is no point in knowing why we have come down to this material world. Prabhupada gives the example of somebody bitten by a mosquito has got malaria. Told to take medicine, but patient is first tell me which mosquito has bit me. What is the point there?
Yes. Okay.
Even the desires in the material world are driven by.
A little louder, please.
Even the desires which come to us in material world are driven by three modes of material nature.
Yes. Yes, because we are in the pool of the three modes. So whatever we do, we'll get reactions by the three modes. Yes.
We are conditioned like this from time immemorial. Only by hearing we can get liberated.
Yes, by submitting to the hearing process properly. Yes.
We discussed about
whatever is happening in material world, Prakriti is responsible because of material, dog has to bark like dog because has got dog can't understand philosophy. So get our body according to our karma.
Yes, our own desires.
Our own desires, and as the living being tries to enjoy the material world, he gets sukha dukha according to that.
Yes.
Nature is not actually the root cause, but only the instrument. For the root cause is the jiva.
Yes, that's right. Thank you.
We will not progress in spiritual life unless we submissively hear to the Shastras.
Okay, submissive hearing is what's important, right? To get out of this material entanglements. May I have one or two more points? Then we also discussed about the other Purusha. Who's that? The real Purusha. One is imitation Purusha, that is a Jiva. But the Jiva is basically Prakriti, the Purusha. Jiva is the enjoyed, not the enjoyer. But the real enjoyer, the real Purusha is the Super Soul. So we discussed on what are the functions of the Super Soul.
Anumanta Upadrashta.
Yes, Upadrashta means?
Upadrashta means he is the overseer.
Overseer.
Yes, Anumanta.
And he gives sanction.
Yes, he gives sanction. Bharta, Bhokta, Maheshwara. So unless he gives sanction, one cannot do anything. Right. And what is the result of understanding this knowledge about the Jiva and the Super Soul and Prakriti?
He does not take birth again.
Yes, so he gets liberation from this material worlds. And then Krishna spoke about some other ways to get liberation.
That's true.
So, Dhyana, yogis and karmis, 3 ways.
Yes. Dhyanena, Sankhya Yogena, Karma Yoga.
Okay, yeah.
Yes. And then if one is not able to do any of these?
Just to hear from the senior.
Yes, hearing from authorities. Okay, fine. So now we go to the last section of the chapter. Okay, the last section, 27 to 35, is called Jnana Chakshusha, the vision of knowledge, or seeing through the eyes of knowledge. So if one gets all this knowledge that has been so far described, then what is his vision? That's what Krishna is describing. Okay, 27th verse. Yavat sanjayate kinchit sattvam sthavar jangamam kshetra kshetrajna sanyoga tadvitti bharatarshava. O chief of Bharatas, know that whatever you see in existence, both the moving and the non-moving, is only a combination of the field of activities and the knower of the field. Okay, so basically everything what exists, yavat, whatever is there, is basically all the sthavara, jangam, moving, non-moving, all of them are basically, so sattvam here means existence. So whatever moving, non-moving entities are existing are basically a combination of kshetra, kshetrajna sanyogat. So that, I think so that's simple to understand. We already discussed about kshetra and kshetrajna. Right. So 28. Samam sarveshu bhuteshu tishtantam parameshwaram vinashyatsu avinashyantam ya pashyati sa pashyati. One who sees the super soul accompanying the individual soul in all bodies and who understands that neither the soul nor the super soul within the destructible body is ever destroyed actually sees. Okay, again, simple philosophy, which essentially has been discussed in the second chapter also, and that is how there is the soul and the super soul in all the bodies, and both of them are indestructible, though the body is destructible. Vinashyatsu or vinashyantam. So the body is vinashyatsu, destructible, but the soul and super soul are avinashyantam. They are not destructible. So Prabhupada writes, anyone who by good association can see three things combined together, the body, the proprietor of the body, the individual soul, and the friend of the individual soul, is actually in knowledge. Unless one has the association of a real knower of spiritual subjects, one cannot see these three things. Those who do not have such association are ignorant, and they simply see the body and think that when the body is destroyed, everything is finished. But actually, it is not so. Prabhupada would often talk about Professor Kotowski, such a big professor in Moscow, but according to him, after this body is finished, everything is finished. And of course, in India, previously also we had Charvak Muni. So like that, so so many of the materialistic people, they don't understand this basic concepts of soul and super soul. So if one understands the presence of the super soul, then what is the result? Next verse. Samam pasyanni sarvatra samavisthitam ishwaram na hinastyat atmanatmanam tato yati param gatim. One who sees the super soul equally present everywhere in every living being does not degrade himself by his mind. Thus he approaches the transcendent destination. Please read the purport.
Siddharth Subudhi Prabhu.
The living entity, by accepting its material existence, has become situated differently than in his spiritual existence. But if one understands that Supreme is situated in his Paramatma manifestation everywhere, that is, if one can see the presence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in every living thing, he does not degrade himself by a destructive mentality, and he therefore gradually advances in the spiritual world. The mind is generally addicted to sense gratification, to sense gratifying processes. But when the mind turns to the super soul, one becomes advanced in spiritual understanding.
Yes. So, samam pashyanhi sarvatra. So one who sees equally everywhere, in all bodies, there is super soul. Samavastitam Ishwaram. So if one sees in all bodies there is Ishwara, then the result will be na hinasti atmanatmanam. He does not degrade himself by the mind. And as a result of that, tato yati param gatim. He achieves the supreme destination or the transcendental destination. So, one of the main causes of degradation, as Krishna described in the 6th chapter, is the mind. And as Krishna said over there, the mind can be friend or enemy. So, like we all have experienced, in the presence of the Supreme Lord in the temple, so we are somewhat conscious that yes, the Supreme Lord is present here, and we tend to behave well, at least in front of the deities. There is some understanding that here the Supreme Lord is present, so I should behave properly. But then, the tendency as soon as one goes out of the temple is to forget the presence of the Lord. And so one becomes covered over by the material energy, the mind takes over, the mind is influenced by the 3 modes, and the mind dictates so many sense-gratifying proposals. Then the mind becomes attracted to so many vishaya, so many sense objects. But then, if one is understanding or one perceives the presence of the Lord everywhere, then obviously one will be careful everywhere. Because if one is conscious that the Supreme Lord is watching, and we already told that story of the Gurukul boy who brought the mango back without eating. So like that, if one is conscious at all times, everywhere, that the Supreme Lord is everywhere and He is watching me, then it is very difficult for one to become victim to the sense gratifying process and degrade himself. So the only reason why one degrades himself by the mind and becomes victim to so many sense gratifying processes, so many cheating processes, so many things people do, is because they don't perceive the presence of the Lord everywhere. So therefore, one who realizes this fact, that the Supreme Lord is everywhere, Andantarastha Paramanu Chayantarastham. So he's present within the atom, he's present in between the atoms, he's present everywhere. So if one has some perception of that, then one will always be careful, whatever he does. So therefore, the important point is that we should develop a greater and greater realization of these facts. So not only understand these facts theoretically, but develop a greater and greater realization. Otherwise, to the degree the realization is not there, then we will find that people may behave appropriately in the temple in front of the deities, but as soon as they step out, then they do so much nonsense. Unfortunately, sometimes we find that even in the association of devotees because of a lack of that realization. And so therefore, that's the reason why one has to repeatedly hear and repeatedly read so that we keep reminding ourselves of these facts, and then one will not degrade himself by the mind. Okay. 30. Prakrityaiva cha karmani kriyamanani sarvashah ya pashyati tatatmanam akartaram sapashyati. One who can see that all activities are performed by the body, which is created of material nature, and sees that the self does nothing, actually sees. Okay, please read this purport.
Deepak Prabhuji.
The body is made by material nature under the direction of the super soul, and whatever activities are going on in respect to one's body are not his doing. Whatever one is supposed to do, either for happiness or for distress, one is forced to do because of the bodily constitution. The self, however, is outside all these bodily activities. This body is given according to one's past desire. To fulfill desire, one is given the body, with which he acts accordingly. Practically speaking, the body is a machine designed by the Supreme Lord to fulfill desires. Because of desire, one is put into difficult circumstances to suffer or to enjoy. This transcendental vision of the living entity, when developed, makes one separate from bodily activities. One who has such vision is an actual seer.
Okay, so we discussed most of these points yesterday, and how as far as the jiva is concerned, the jiva can do only one thing, and that is desire. And based upon those desires, he's given a certain body. And when he's given the body is like a machine. Later on, Krishna will say that yantra rudani maya. So it's like a yantra, it is like a machine. And so when one is given a certain machine, then he has to act with that machine. Then he has no choice, as we were discussing yesterday also. So Prabhupada gives the example that just like one has, so talking about the machine, Prabhupada gives examples. So just like if one has a Mercedes or a car which can go very fast, then yes, then one can drive very fast. But if one has only a scooter or something like that, then he cannot drive very fast. But that's his affording capacity. So based upon that affording capacity, then he buys that machine, and when he has that machine, then he has to work according to the limitations of that machine. Then he cannot do anything about it. So similarly, according to one's desires, one is given a certain body, and then one has to work according to the limitations of that body. As we were discussing yesterday, the lower animals, they can't understand philosophy, they cannot attend a Bhagavad Gita class, so they have to perform their activities according to their own limited capacities in their own bodies. And that also applies to human beings. So even amongst different humans, we find different humans have different capacities and different abilities. But then one has to work according to that. So we find different people, different levels of intelligence, there's so many varieties. So all the different varieties of bodies are because of desires. Every body has been designed specifically, as Prabhupada says, tailor-made. Very specific word. Prabhupada says tailor-made according to different desires. And so then when the body is given, then yes, then one has to work with that body. So suppose I don't have a very good voice. I can't do anything about it, even though I may have a desire to sing, but then I have this body, what to do? So then I have to be satisfied with that, and I have to use whatever is available. So then there's no point in grumbling, oh, I have this body, that body. But then one has to understand that I have this body, but this body is specific according to my own desires. And then I have to work with this body. So, but one understands that, yes, I am different from this body. I'm different from this body, and I can get out of this body. So that's what we discuss about jnana. So the process of getting out of the kshetra. So that's the process of jnana. So then one who understands all this, then he is the actual seer. Okay, 31. Yada bhuta pritag bhavam ekastham manupashyati tata eva cha vistaram brahma sampadhyate tada. When a sensible man ceases to see different identities due to different material bodies, and he sees how beings are expanded everywhere, he attains to the Brahman conception. Okay, yada bhuta pritag bhavam. So when one sees that there are different bodies, but even though there are different bodies, ekastham anupashyati. But he sees there is one spirit soul in all the bodies, even though there are different bodies. So it is something like Vidya Vinay Sampanne Brahmane Kaviyastani Shuni. So like that. So similar thing here also. So different identities, different bodies, but within all the bodies there is one spirit soul. Or yes, so the spirit soul. So as Prabhupada is writing, okay, read this purport also.
When one can see that various bodies of living entities arise due to different desires of the individual soul and do not actually belong to the soul itself, one actually sees. In the material conception of life, we find someone a demigod, someone a human being, a dog, a cat, etc. This is material vision, not actual vision. This material differentiation is due to a material conception of life. After the destruction of the material body, the spirit soul is one. The spirit soul, due to contact with the material nature, gets different types of bodies. When one can see this, he attains spiritual vision. Thus, being freed from the differentiations like man, animal, dog, low, etc., one becomes purified in his consciousness and able to develop Krishna consciousness in his spiritual identity. How he then sees things will be explained in the next verse.
Okay, fine. So the material vision is to misidentify with the body and see the different bodies. But then one who understands that beyond this body is a spirit soul, then he is the one who is actually seeing with proper knowledge and with proper vision. So, so one who has the material vision, then he sees the different bodies. And as Prabhupada writes here, that in the material conception of life, then we find demigod, human being, dog, cat. And this material differentiation is due to material conception of life. So we find how people differentiate on the bodily concept of life. And as Prabhupada explained so many times. So then on the bodily concept of life, somebody is thinking, I'm Indian, I'm American, I'm European, I'm Hindu, I'm Muslim, I'm Bengali, I'm Odia, Punjabi, and so on and so forth. So then one is making differentiation on the bodily concept of life. And as Prabhupada, he tells from his own experience about Hindu-Muslim rights after Hindustan and Pakistan were divided. There were all these Hindu-Muslim rights. And then so many Hindus and Muslims killed each other. So Srila Prabhupada was in Calcutta and he was saying that, so these people are killing each other, but at the end of the day, the municipal van would come and just collect all these bodies and dump them in a truck and then take them and burn them. Then who's Hindu and who's Muslim? It makes no difference. So people fight on the basis of the bodily conception, not understanding that after all everyone is spirit soul, and the bodily conception is going to change. So as Prabhupada would say that when he was speaking in America, he would say that, okay, so now you're very proud that you're American, but then who knows what body you'll get next life. If you're very attached to America, then you may get, but you're not acting appropriately. Maybe you'll get the body of an American cow, and then you'll be sent to the slaughterhouse. So like that, so if one is simply misidentifying with the body, then there are so many problems and so many challenges because of the bodily misconception. And so because of the bodily misconception, then one misidentifies with the body, one gets so much affected by bodily changes, by so many things happening on the bodily concept of life. Somebody is praising, somebody is insulting. So many dualities of material existence, one becomes so much affected by them because of the bodily conception. But when one comes to the Brahman conception, Brahma Sampadyate, so when one comes to the Brahman conception, that is, one is able to see the spirit soul, then he can act on the spiritual platform, spiritual consciousness. Okay, and that's how one can develop Krishna consciousness. So, so next verse, 32. Anaditvan nirgunatvad paramatmayam avyaya sharirastopi kaunteya na karoti na lipyate. Those with the vision of eternity can see that the imperishable soul is transcendental, eternal, and beyond the modes of nature. Despite contact with the material body, Arjuna, the soul neither does anything nor is entangled. So anyway, that's a similar point, that the soul is always aloof from the body, and the soul he does nothing nor is entangled, but then it's only because of misidentification with the body that everything happens. Okay, 33. Yatha sarvagatam saukshmyad akasham nopalipyate sarvatra avastito dehe tatatma nopalipyate. So Krishna is now giving an example to establish this point. The sky, due to its subtle nature, does not mix with anything, although it is all pervading. Similarly, the soul, situated in Brahman vision, does not mix with the body, though situated in that body. So I think so that's quite simple to understand. Sorry. So as Prabhupada is explaining, the air enters into mud, water, mud, stool, and whatever else is there, still does not mix with anything. Similarly, the living entity, even though situated in varieties of bodies, is aloof from them due to his subtle nature. That was impossible to see with the material eyes how the living entity is in contact with his body and how he's out of it after destruction of the body. So the soul is there, but he does not he doesn't mix with the body. He doesn't mix with the body. So the identity of the soul always remains separate from the body. Okay, 34. Yatha prakasyat yeka kritsnam lokamimam ravi Kshetram Kshetri Tada Kritsnam Prakasheti Bharata. O son of Bharata, as the sun alone illuminates all this universe, so does the living entity, one within the body, illuminate the entire body by consciousness. So just like the sun is situated in one place and illuminates the whole universe, similarly the soul is situated in one place in the region of the heart and provides consciousness to the entire body. So anyway, this is a concept which we studied in the second chapter. As Prabhupada writes, when the soul is present in the body, there's consciousness all over the body, and as soon as the soul has passed from the body, there is no more consciousness. This can be easily understood by an intelligent man. Therefore, consciousness is not a product of the combination of matter. It is a symptom of the living entity. So, Prabhupada very often refuted this materialistic conception that consciousness comes by combination of matter, or life comes from matter. And so Prabhupada very often told the instant of how there was this Nobel laureate who put forward the thesis of chemical evolution, and his theory was everything is simply a combination of chemicals, life is coming from chemicals. And so Srila Prabhupada tells the instant of how in California this person was giving a talk, and Swarup Damodar Maharaj was present. And so at the end of his talk, Swarup Damodar Maharaj asked him that, so you say everything comes from chemicals, so if I provide you with all the chemicals, can you produce life? And the man said, that I cannot say. So Prabhupada says that's the nonsense. So they are claiming that life is coming from chemicals, consciousness coming from chemicals, but they cannot do anything. They can't produce anything. So yes, so one should have that proper understanding and proper vision. And finally, 35th verse, Krishna is summarizing. Kshetra kshetra jnayorevam mantaram jnana chakshusha bhuta prakriti moksham cha ye viduryanti te param. Those who see with eyes of knowledge the difference between the body and the knower of the body, and can also understand the process of liberation from bondage and material nature, attain to the supreme goal. So Prabhupada is giving a nice summary. Somebody can read the purport.
Shyam Chaitanya Prabhuji. Shyam Chaitanya Prabhuji, I've unmuted you. Okay, Anu Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. The purport of this 13th chapter is that one should know the distinction between the body, the owner of the body, and the supersoul. One should recognize the process of liberation as described in verse 8 through 11. Then one can go on to the supreme destination. A faithful person should at first have some good association to hear of God and thus gradually become enlightened. If one accepts a spiritual master, one can learn to distinguish between matter and spirit, and that becomes the stepping stone for further spiritual realization. A spiritual master, by various instructions, teaches his students to get free from the material conception of life. For instance, in Bhagavad Gita, we find Krishna instructing Arjuna to free him from the materialistic considerations. One can understand that this body is matter. It can be analyzed with its 24 elements. The body is the gross manifestation, and the subtle manifestation is the mind and psychological effects. And the symptoms of life are the interactions of these features. But over and above this, there is the soul, and there is also the supersoul. The soul and the supersoul are two. This material world is working by the conjunction of the soul and 24 material elements. One who can see the constitution of the whole material manifestation as this combination of the soul and material elements, and can also see the situation of the supreme soul, becomes eligible for transfer to the spiritual world. These things are meant for contemplation and for realization, and one should have a complete understanding of this chapter with the help of the spiritual master. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport to the 13th chapter, the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the matter of nature, the enjoyer, and the consciousness.
Okay, so that's a good summary of the entire chapter Prabhupada is giving here. And so one should, as Prabhupada says, These things are meant for contemplation and for realization. Okay, so not simply for reading and hearing and forgetting the whole thing. So there is Shravanam, then there is Mananam, and then there is Nididhyasanam. So one has to read, hear, then contemplate, then apply, then there can be realization. And so all that is possible with the help of the spiritual master. Okay, fine. So that's the end of the 13th chapter. So if there are a few questions we could take before we go on to the 14th.
Yes, Prabhuji, there are around 4 questions. Starting with Siddharth Subudip Prabhu, asked at 7:36 a.m.
What's
If soul does nothing and it is known, then why the
okay,
soul
soul
desires?
does nothing and it is known, then why soul desires anything? Yeah, that's the only thing the soul can do. He can desire, that's all. So he desires. That's the only thing he can do. That's the only free will he has to desire. And so then he has that choice what to desire. So he can, as we discussed, the soul is Tatastha Shakti. So he can either desire material things or spiritual things. He can desire according to the will of the Lord or against the will of the Lord. So that's what the soul can do. All right. What happens to Paramatma, form of Kshetrajna, after the Jiva is liberated? After the Jiva is liberated, what is the need of Paramatma? Paramatma is required only in the material world to guide the Jiva. After liberation, there is no need of Paramatma. Is consciousness material or spiritual? Because the 24 elements includes consciousness. In the list of 24 elements, there Chaitanya doesn't refer to the consciousness of the soul. There Chaitanya refers to the, you can say, the situation of the mind, or you could say the consciousness of the mind, contaminated consciousness, the material consciousness of the mind. That is what is being referred to in that list of 24 elements, Chaitanya. So there Chaitanya has nothing to do with the consciousness of the soul. That is referring to the vikari of the subtle body. So that's to do with the mind and the intelligence and the contaminated consciousness, or the material contamination within the mind. That is what is being referred to there. All right. Does not differentiate materially. This is highest and we have to aspire for this. Does thinking that I am a devotee, he is a non-devotee, also fall in this material conception? Now, the Madhyamadhikari differentiates, as you have already finished Nectar of Instruction, right? Yes. So Nectar of Instruction, you may have studied the symptoms of the Madhyamadhikari. So the Madhyamadhikari differentiates between the Lord, the devotees, the non-devotees, the innocent, the envious. So that's natural for a preacher, for a devotee to differentiate. Then he can accordingly associate with different types of people. So the Prabhupada also advises neophyte devotees to not associate. Yes. Okay, fine. So that's right. So for association, then we need to differentiate. Does the knowledge of supersoul in other beings become an impairment to That's what Krishna is telling Arjuna. He's telling him to fight. Not that because the super soul is there, therefore he should not fight. Krishna is telling Arjuna to fight and telling him that soul and super soul are eternal. There's nothing is going to happen to them. You only kill the body. So that's why he's telling him to fight, isn't it? Okay, according to our previous desire, we got this body and everything is fixed for this life. So we should not do anything, only do desire to reach next life. Yeah, so we have to perform our duties, as we read in our purport previously. Prabhupada was, I think it's in the lecture. Yeah, so we have to do our duties. Whatever our prescribed duties, we do our duties. And as far as maintenance of the body is concerned, and our ultimate duty is spiritual duties to get out of the material entanglement. So there are conditional duties in relationship to the body to keep body and soul together, and there are constitutional duties in relation to the soul. That's spiritual activities, devotional service to get out of this material entanglement. Is it all right?
Yes, Prabhuji. Yes.
Okay, fine. So now we proceed to the 14th chapter. Let's see if there's something here. Okay, fine. That's it. So that's the end of the 13th chapter. And now we go to the 14th chapter. How do we get there? Prabhu, see, I need to go back to the desktop. So what should I do?
You can close the slide, Prabhuji, because I think the whole screen is being shared.
You can stop the share and then open the new PPT and then you can share it again, Prabhuji.
Okay, like that, huh?
Yes, Prabhuji.
So I leave the meeting now and then come back?
No need to leave the meeting, Prabhuji. You can, once you open that PPT, then you can come back to Zoom and then you can share screen again.
That's what I'm wondering, how to get back to the desktop.
Okay.
Like if you open that full screen, then after that you just press the window button. So you will see all the taskbar, and there you open the Zoom and you can start share again.
Yes, Prabhuji. You might be in full screen of Zoom. You can try pressing the escape button. See.
And that's what. If I press the escape button, nothing is happening. Okay, that's good. Okay, fine. Okay, that's better. Okay.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Fine. Okay, so going to chapter 14. The three modes of material nature. Overview of chapter 14. So, short chapter. 1 to 4, Krishna is seed-giving father of all beings, and then conditioning, characteristics, action and death in the modes from 5 to 8, and transcending the modes, 19 to 27. Okay, going to the first section from 1 to 4, Krishna is seed-giving father of all beings. So first verse. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Param Bhuya Pravakshami Jnananam Jnanamuttamam Yash Gyatva Muniya Sarve Param Siddhim Ito Gataha. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, again I shall declare to you the supreme wisdom, the best of all knowledge, knowing which all the sages have attained the supreme perfection. Okay, please read the purport.
Ganesh Prabhuji.
Purport. From the 7th chapter to the end of the 12th chapter, Sri Krishna in detail reveals the absolute truth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, the Lord himself is further enlightening Arjuna. If one understands this chapter through the process of philosophical speculation, he will come to an understanding of devotional service. In the 13th chapter, it was clearly explained that by humbly developing knowledge, one may possible be freed from material entanglement. It has also been explained that it is due to association with the modes of nature that the living entity is entangled in this material world. Now, in this chapter, the Supreme Personality explains what those modes of nature are, how they act, how they bind, and how they give liberation. The knowledge explained in this chapter is proclaimed by the Supreme Lord to be superior to the knowledge given so far in other chapters. By understanding this knowledge, various great sages attain perfection and transfer to the spiritual world. The Lord now explains the same knowledge in a better way. This knowledge is far superior to all other process of knowledge, thus far explained. And knowing this, many attained perfection. Thus, it is expected that one who understands this 14th chapter will attain perfection.
So, here Krishna is saying, Param Bhuyaha. Bhuya means again. Again I shall explain Jnananam Jnanam Uttamam. So he's saying, I'm going to explain to you Uttamam, the supreme knowledge of all knowledge, the best of all knowledge. So what is this knowledge that is the best of all knowledge? Already Krishna said in the 9th chapter, he said that is the most confidential knowledge, that is the best of all knowledge. So what is this? Again he's saying, best of all knowledge. What do you think? Yes, anyone?
Oh, this was a confusion for us. This how can understanding of first thing is how can philosophical speculation will result in devotional service. That
Okay,
is a
that's what
confusion.
we're coming to. But now, what is this point? The best of all knowledge.
Maybe realization, Prabhu.
No, that realization of the 9th and 10th chapter, that is also best of all knowledge, no? Most Guhyatamam.
Means jiva comes in contact with three modes of nature. So how can we get liberate by knowing this, that how this acts and how, so knowledge of that.
Okay, good. That's correct. So this is the best knowledge in regards to jiva and prakriti, and how jiva is entangled by prakriti. So this is, and how to get out of that entanglement. So this is the best knowledge on this subject matter. That's what the acharyas explain, that this is the best knowledge in regards to this subject matter of jiva and prakriti. And so therefore Krishna says, Yaj Gyatma Munaya Sarve. So by knowing this knowledge, Muniya, great sages, what did they attain? Param Siddhim Ito Gataha. So they attain the transcendental destination or perfection. Fine. So now Prabhupada is writing in the purport that if one understands this chapter through the process of philosophical speculation, we will come to an understanding of devotional service. So, what is the meaning of philosophical speculation in the first place? So there are two things, mental speculation and philosophical speculation. So who's going to tell us the difference?
Prabhu, maybe mental is self-made speculation and philosophical speculation is from the scriptures.
Good, good, very good points. Very, very precise points. Good. Somebody else would like to add to that?
Yes, Prabhu, but the
Bolo.
Prabhu, Prabhupada says, let's say in the court,
manifest out of it.
Prabhu, am I audible, Prabhu?
Yes.
In the court, two lawyers they debate based on law books. So they come up with their points, arguments, debating. But here is law books. So here, if you debate from the point of scriptures like the modes of nature, Jnana Yoga, whatever we're discussing. So the debates, whatever is happening, still it will strengthen our mind or intelligence so that we can come out of our bodily conception. So
good point. Good point. Very nice. Somebody else?
Hemnathan Prabhu has raised his hand.
What?
Prabhu, like, is it also considering that Shaddarshanas, comparing Shaddarshanas with Bhakti?
So basically talking about scriptures. Okay, fine. Yes. So your points are correct. Your points are correct. So let's hear from Srila Prabhupada. Okay. So this is Vishwanath Thakur's commentary on the verse. Somebody like to read this?
Karthikeya Prabhuji.
In the 14th chapter, the bondage caused by the gunas and the symptoms are described. The many symptoms of the disappearance of the gunas and the cause of disappearance, bhakti, are also described. In the previous chapter, it was described that the contact of the jiva with the body made of gunas is the cause of his taking repeated births. Karanam guna sangosya sad asad yoni janmasu. What type of results come from contact with the gunas? What are the symptoms of those associated with the gunas? How is one liberated from the gunas? In anticipation of these questions, the Lord promises to speak about the above topics while praising them. Knowledge here means teachings by which one gains knowledge.
Okay, so this is the connection between the 13th and the 14th chapters. As we said in our previous discussions, that the 22nd verse, Purusha Prakriti Stohi Bhungte Prakriti Jan Guna Karanam Guna Sangasya Sadasad Yoni Janmasu. This is the Mahavakya, on the basis of which all the remaining chapters of this section of the last 6 chapters are based on. And so because Krishna said that Karanam Guna Sangasya, so then these questions would be asked. What are the results of coming in contact with the gunas? What are the symptoms and how is one liberated? So that's the connection between 13 and the 14 chapters. So now this is Prabhupada's explanation of mental speculation, philosophical speculation. Unfortunately, the reference has disappeared, but it is in a letter to one devotee named as Chaturbhuj. Okay, somebody read this.
Hemnathan Prabhuji.
Mental speculation, philosophical speculation. As for the difference between mental speculation and philosophical speculation, we take it that everything is known by the psychological action of the mind. So that philosophical speculation is the same as mental speculation. If it is merely the random or haphazard activity of the brain to understand everything and making theories, ifs and maybes, but if philosophical speculation is directed by Shastra and Guru, and if the goal of such philosophical attempts is to achieve Vishnu, then that philosophical speculation is not mental speculation. It is just like this. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that I am the taste of water. Philosophical speculation in the accepted sense then means to try to understand under the direction of Shastra and Guru just how Krishna is the taste of water.
Okay, so if speculation is simply, as Prabhupada says, a psychological action of the mind, random or haphazard activity of the brain, so then ifs and maybes, so then that is mental speculation. But if philosophical speculation is directed by Shastra and Guru, so 2 points. What is philosophical speculation? First point is directed by Shastra and Guru, and second point is what is the goal? The goal is to achieve Vishnu. Then that philosophical speculation is not mental speculation. Otherwise, it is mental speculation. If it is simply the activity of the minds and one is simply speculating ifs and maybes, there is no proper basis, so then that's simply mental speculation. But if the basis of that speculation is Guru and Shastra, and the goal is to achieve Vishnu, then it is philosophical speculation. Prabhupada is giving an example that Krishna says, I'm the taste of water. So philosophical speculation is to try and understand how Krishna is the taste of water under the direction of Shastra and Guru. Not I think and you think and we think and not like that. But it is based on Shastra and Guru. That means what this Shastra is saying, what that Shastra is saying, or what that Sadhu is saying, what this Sadhu is saying. So it's all based upon Guru, Sadhu, Shastra. It is not I think and you think. So the moment I think, you think, if maybe comes in the picture, then it's all mental speculation. Okay, so that's the basic difference. Okay, fine. So now, so Krishna is saying that this knowledge is Uttamam. It's best of all knowledge in regards to this topic of Jiva and Prakriti. Now the next verse, Krishna is further glorifying this knowledge. Idam jnanam upashritya mama sadharmyam agataha sarge api nopajayante pralayena vyatanti cha. By becoming fixed in this knowledge, one can attain to the transcendental nature like my own. Thus established, one is not born at the time of creation or disturbed at the time of dissolution. That means is not affected by the cycle of birth and death. And what does he attain? Sadharmyam. He attains to transcendental nature. Okay, please read the purport.
Shweta Mataji.
Yeah. After acquiring perfect transcendental knowledge, one acquires qualitative equality with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, becoming free from the repetition of birth and death. One does not, however, lose his identity as an individual soul. It is understood from Vedic literature that the liberated souls who have reached the transcendental planets of the spiritual sky always look to the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, being engaged in his transcendental loving service. So, even after liberation, the devotees do not lose their individual identities. Generally, in the material world, whatever knowledge we get is contaminated by the three modes of material nature. Knowledge which is not contaminated by three modes of material nature is called transcendental knowledge. As soon as one is situated in the transcendental knowledge, he is on the same platform as the Supreme Person. Those who have no knowledge of the spiritual sky hold that after being freed from the material activities of the material form, this spiritual identity becomes formless, without any variegatedness. However, just as there is material variegatedness in this world, in the spiritual world, there is also variegatedness. Those in ignorance of this thing, that spiritual existence is opposed to material variety. But actually, in the spiritual sky, one attains a spiritual form. There are spiritual activities, and the spiritual situation is called devotional life. That atmosphere is said to be uncontaminated, and there one is equal in quality with the Supreme Lord. To obtain such knowledge, one must develop all the spiritual qualities. One who thus develops the spiritual qualities is not affected either by the creation or by the destruction of the material world.
Okay, thank you. So here Krishna is explaining that idam jnanam upashritya. So if one takes shelter of this knowledge, so that means one is serious about acquiring the knowledge, practicing it. So if one takes shelter of this knowledge, then the result is mama sadharmyam agataha. So that means one becomes freed, as Prabhupada writes, one becomes freed from the repetition of birth and death and acquires qualitative equality with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But then at the same time, Prabhupada is refuting the Mayavad philosophy that it does not mean that after liberation, the soul becomes one with the super soul. So the individuality of the soul is always maintained. Okay? And then he's explaining about jnanam, and then he's saying that in the material world, all the knowledge is contaminated by the three modes. But when we talk of transcendental knowledge, then transcendental knowledge is beyond the three modes. So even the knowledge which the jnanis obtain, that is the knowledge about soul and spirit, soul and matter, or the knowledge that I'm not the body, I'm soul, that is also sattvagun jnana. Okay, that is also not transcendental. But it is only knowledge in relation to the Supreme Law that is transcendental. And so, when one obtains that transcendental knowledge, then one can achieve the transcendental platform. And then one can achieve the spiritual sky where there is spiritual variegatedness. So material variegatedness is present only because there's spiritual variety. So because the material world is a reflection of the spiritual world. So one can achieve that spiritual sky by obtaining this transcendental knowledge. Vishwanath Thakur also says that one can obtain this transcendental knowledge only by the mercy of Guru. Okay, so now Krishna is first of all describing how the jiva comes into material nature. So in one verse, Krishna is sort of describing the process of creation and how the jivas are entrapped in material nature. Mama yonir mahat brahma tasmin garbham dadamyaham sambhava sarva bhutanam tato bhavati bharata. The total material substance called Brahman is the source of birth, and is that Brahman that impregnates, making possible the birth of all living beings, O son of Bharata. So here, Mama Yonir Mahat Brahma. Mahat Brahma here refers to the Mahat Tattva. You can see in the purport Prabhupada is mentioning that. The Mahat Tattva is the total cause of the total cosmic manifestation, the total substance of the material cause in which there are three modes of nature is sometimes called Brahman. So this total material substance, the Mahat Tattva, is described as Brahman in the Vedic literature. And the Supreme Person impregnates that Brahman with the seeds of the living entities. Okay, so that details are described in the Srimad Bhagavatam, how Mahavishnu, he glances on the Pradhan becomes activated in the Mahat Tattva, and then Mahavishnu impregnates the Mahat Tattva with the seeds or the souls of the living entities. So basically impregnates the Mahat Tattva with the living entities, and then they're given different bodies and all that. So a lot of details are there in that. But that's what Krishna is describing here, that how Garbham, he says, Tasmin Garbham Dadami Aham. So Krishna is saying aham. So I impregnate the material nature with the living entities. So therefore, Prabhupada gives this analogy. So this is called as the Tandul Vrichika Nyai. So this is logic of the rice and the scorpions. What is that? The scorpion lays its eggs in piles of rice, and sometimes it's said that scorpion is born out of rice, but the rice is not the cause of scorpion. Actually, the eggs were laid by the mother. Similarly, material nature is not the cause of the birth of the living entities. The seed is given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and they only seem to come out as products of material nature. Thus, every living entity, according to its past activities, is a different body created by this material nature, so that the entity can enjoy or suffer according to its past deeds. The Lord is the cause of all the manifestations of living entities. So Prabhupada also gives another analogy that also has a name. I'm forgetting them. So that says that so just like the below the neck of the goat, there is some loose skin which sometimes appears as nipples, and so if one thinks one can get milk from there, it's not possible. So similarly, it is not possible for the material nature to produce life. Material nature is inert, material nature is dead. So it's only because the Lord impregnates the jivas into material nature that the jivas take birth. So we find modern day scientists, they speak about how everything is coming from material nature. But then Prabhupada's simple logistic refutation of that was, can mother produce a child without the father? So it is just like that. If one just says everything is coming from material nature, but then the next question arises, but material nature is like mother, but who impregnates her? And so therefore, so just like the rice cannot produce the scorpion unless the mother lays the egg, so similarly, the material nature cannot produce life without the Lord impregnating the material nature with the living entities. So that's how the living entities come into material nature. And as we were discussing yesterday also, as soon as, okay, that's the fifth verse. Okay, so therefore in the next verse, Krishna says, Sarva yonishu kaunteya murtaya sambhavanti yaha tasam brahma madhyonir aham bija pradapitaha. It should be understood that all species of life, O son of Kunti, are made possible by birth in this material nature, and that I am the seed-giving father. So Prabhupada very often quoted this bija pradapita, and how the Supreme Lord is the father of all living entities, and so therefore all living entities are children of the Supreme Lord, so therefore we cannot kill anyone. So Prabhupada would give the simple example that just because if a father has two children, and if one child is not very intelligent, is not able to do much in life, if the other son says, oh, this fellow is useless, we have to maintain him, let's kill him, will the father agree? No, the father will not agree. So similarly, just because there are lower animals who may not be contributing so much or whatever, so one cannot kill them. One cannot just kill them. So one has to understand that all living entities are parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord. Krishna is saying, I'm the father of all living entities. So therefore Prabhupada said, if you don't have the ability to produce life, you have no right to take away life. So therefore one does not have the right to kill any living entity. Prabhupada gives another example. So he says that just like if a person is entitled to occupy a certain apartment, and some other person comes and drives him away from the apartment illegally, then that's crime, that's criminal. He can be arrested and put in jail for driving out the other person. So he says similarly, when we kill someone, then it's just like that. So the body is compared to apartment. We said that previously also. So when we kill someone prematurely, then it is like throwing the person out of the apartment illegally. So then, so just like if, so Prabhupada says, just like if you throw a person out of the apartment, he'll find some other apartment, he'll find. But the person who threw him out will be incriminated in the crime. So similarly, yes, you throw the jiva out of a body, the jiva will find some other body. That Prakriti will give. But then the person who is throwing him out is incriminated in karma and is to face a reaction for that. So therefore, no one has a right to kill any jiva unnecessarily. Right, and so the jivas come into material nature. Prabhupada explains at other places, and the Bhagavatam also speaks about it. So there are four ways, basically, four ways how the jivas are born into Prakriti. So what are they? So one is by, somebody knows? What are the four ways how the jivas take birth?
Andaja.
Yes.
Vedaja.
Yes. Two more.
Missed.
Somebody else?
Through perspiration.
Yes, perspiration. Then?
Through eggs.
Eggs, correct.
Yeah. And
the most common one you're forgetting. The most common ones.
Embryo.
Yes, the embryo. And how are plants born?
Seeds.
Yes, seeds. So from the earth. So these are the four ways in which the jivas they take birth in the material nature. So, but ultimately Krishna is the seed-giving father. He is the father of all the jivas. So that's how the jivas come into the material world. And what happens when they come to the material world? So that's the first section of the chapter. That Krishna is the seed-giving father. Okay, we read that. Do we have something? Okay, we read that. Okay, fine. So now we go to the next section from 5 to 18, conditioning, characteristics, action, death, and the modes. So as soon as the jivas come into the material world, the first thing that happens is, as we said yesterday also, they are covered over by the three modes. They become conditioned by the three modes. And that's what Krishna is saying in the 5th verse. Sattvam rajastamaiti guna prakriti sambhava nivadnanti mahabaho dehe dehi namavyayam. Material nature consists of three modes: goodness, passion, ignorance. When the eternal living entity comes in contact with nature of mighty Arjuna, he becomes conditioned by these modes. So Prabhupada explains that the living entity is transcendental, it has nothing to do with material nature. Still, because he has become conditioned by the material world, he is acting under the spell of three modes of material nature. Because living entities have different kinds of bodies in terms of the different aspects of nature, they are induced to act according to that nature. This is the cause of the varieties of happiness and distress. Okay, so they become conditioned. So how they become conditioned? By the three modes. Now Krishna is explaining what happens when they become conditioned by the three modes. So first of all, he's talking about the sattva guna. Tatra sattvam nirmalatvat prakashakam manamayam sukha sangena badnati jnana sangena chanaga. O sinless one, the mode of goodness being purer than the others is illuminating, and it frees one from all sinful reactions. those situated in that mode become conditioned by a sense of happiness and knowledge. Please read the purport.
Abhay Anand Prabhuji. Abhay Anand, yeah.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Yes, Prabhuji, please.
The living entities conditioned are of various types. One is happy, another is very active, and another is helpless. All these types of psychological manifestations are cause of the entity's conditions status in nature. How they are differently conditioned is explained in this section of Bhagavad Gita. The mode of goodness is first considered. The effect of developing the mode of goodness in the material world is that one becomes wiser than those otherwise conditioned. A man in the mode of goodness is not so much affected by material miseries, and he has a sense of advancement in material knowledge. The representative type is the Brahmana, who is supposed to be situated in the mode of goodness. His sense of happiness is due to understanding that in the mode of goodness, one is more or less free from sinful reactions. Actually, in the Vedic literature, it is said that the mode of goodness means greater knowledge and a greater sense of happiness. The difficulty here is that when a living entity is situated in the mode of goodness, he becomes conditioned to feel that he is advanced in knowledge and is better than others. In this way, he becomes conditioned. The best example are the scientists and the philosophers. Each is very proud of his knowledge, and because they generally improve their living conditions, they feel a sort of material happiness. This sense of advanced happiness in conditioned life makes them bound by the mode of goodness of material nature. As such, they are attracted towards working in the mode of goodness, and as long as they have an attraction of work in that way, they have to take some type of body in the mode of nature. Thus, there is no likelihood of liberation or of being transferred to the spiritual world. Repeatedly, one may become a philosopher, a scientist, or a poet, and repeatedly become entangled in the same disadvantages of birth and death. But due to the illusion of the material energy, one thinks that sort of life is pleasant.
Yes. So, this is how the person is conditioned by the sattvagun. So, tatra sattvam nirmalatvat. So, nirmalatvat means nirmal, no mal. So, he's purer. So, why is purer? Because prakashakam anamayam. So he is more prakash. More prakash means what? More knowledge. So he has more knowledge. This knowledge is basically, as Prabhupada explained the purport, it's mostly material knowledge. But material knowledge from the Vedic viewpoint, not this modern material knowledge. Modern material knowledge is no knowledge at all. That is Shudra's business, Prabhupada, technology. That is Shudra's business. Craftsmanship. Prabhupada says, what big knowledge is? The electrician, he joins one wire here, one wire there. That is no knowledge. Here we are not talking about that knowledge. So, here we are talking about knowledge from the Vedic viewpoint. As Prabhupada says, the best example is a Brahmana. So, who's a Brahmana? Brahmajanati iti Brahmana. So, that means at least the person, he has knowledge that I am spirit soul, I am not this body, there is some supreme power. He may not exactly know who's that supreme power, but at least he has some understanding of the supreme Brahman. And he also understands that, yes, there is next life. He has knowledge about Papa and Punya. And so he knows that he performs Punya, he will get benefits. If he performs Papa, then he'll have to suffer. So this knowledge he has. So because he has this knowledge, then therefore he is careful not to commit sinful activities. So because he's careful not to commit sinful activities, so therefore less sinful reactions, less punishments, less misery. So that's how the person in the mode of goodness, he doesn't have too much of misery, because he tends to avoid sinful activities because he has knowledge. And also because of that, he's not so much affected by the various anarthas, Kam, Krodh, Lobha. So he's not so much affected by them because he understands that all this is entangling and it'll be a cause of misery. So he's not too greedy for material things, material achievements, more or less satisfied with whatever he has. It reminds me of one example Srila Prabhupada gives in a lecture about a Brahmana's life. So this is Prabhupada's own experience when he was living at Allahabad, Prayagraj. So Prabhupada was living there, as we know, for business. He had Prayag pharmacy. And so close to his house, there was a Brahmin couple, husband and wife. And so Prabhupada explains that how both of them would rise very early in the morning, and they would go and take their baths in the Ganges, and they would come back home, and then the man would be doing his puja and reading of Shastra and so many things which would take many hours. And the lady also would do some puja, this, that, but then she would get into her household chores and household activities. And the man would be doing all his elaborate pujas and reading Shastra and this and that. And so maybe some breakfast or whatever, and then even after that he would be doing all that. And practically all that would go on till afternoon, till noon, 12 o'clock. And so at noon time he would take his lunch, and after that maybe he would take a nap or something. And the wife would cook, in the meantime, the wife would cook a variety of eatables. And then when it's evening time, both husband and wife would set up a stall right in front of the house. And they would display all these eatables. And then close by, there were some colleges and students living in hostels. And so young boys usually attracted to eating variety of foodstuffs. And so they would come and purchase all these eatables. And so that's how their business would go on till night. So few hours in the evening, maybe 3-4 hours. And then the business is done, finished, wound up for the day. So Prabhupada is describing this to show that's Brahmana's life. Very simple, very satisfied. So there are no big ambitions to earn a lot of money and get this, get that. So basically satisfied. So they may not have made a lot of money, but then they were satisfied with that. And basically they're doing their puja and part and all that. And at the same time, they're earning little money and they're just satisfied. So that's Brahmana's life. So because they're satisfied, then there is less scope for sinful activities and exploitation and somehow get money and all that. Because it's satisfying. So that's Brahmana's life. That's Brahmana's life. And so therefore, they remain happy. They remain happy, content, satisfied. But now that also becomes a problem because they become attached to such a life. Now we should note this point that in the material world, Prabhupada writes it somewhere else. In the material world, there is no pure goodness or pure passion or pure ignorance. Everything is a mix. Now, when we say somebody is in goodness, basically it means that he's predominantly in goodness, but at the same time he's also contaminated by, to some extent, by rajas and tamas. The same applies for passion and ignorance. So nothing is pure, everything is a mix. So somebody in goodness also becomes affected by rajas, passion. What is a passion? The passion is his attachment to the peaceful material life. That is his contamination of the mode of passion. He becomes attached to that sort of lifestyle. And that is a problem Srila Prabhupada faced in preaching to the Indians initially. So when Srila Prabhupada tried to preach to the Indians initially, what Indians would say? Oh, we know this Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, we know, what are you going to teach us? And that's how nobody took to Krishna consciousness. So one who's leading a materially comfortable life, then for him to appreciate or take to Krishna consciousness and try to get out of the material world, that there's no immediate necessity for that, for such a person, because he's sort of satisfied with his life. So that's the problem of the mode of goodness. That is the conditioning of the mode of goodness. The conditioning is, that's what Krishna is saying here. Sukha sangena badnati. What is the bandhan? The bandhan is sukha. The happiness becomes the cause of his bandhan. So two causes of the bandhan. What is that? Sukha sangena and jnana sangena. These are the two causes of the bandhan. The two causes of the bandhan are what? Sukha and jnana. So because of the jnana and the sukha, he remains satisfied in material life. And he never feels the urgency to get out. So that's the problem. That's the conditioning of the mode of goodness. And so therefore, Srila Prabhupada did say that preaching means to comfort the discomforted and discomfort the comforted. So somebody is too miserable, then he has to be a little bit comforted. Okay, there is hope. But somebody is leading a very comfortable life, then he has to be discomforted. And therefore we find Prabhupada in so many lectures, he does that. He says, oh, you think you're leading a nice, peaceful material life? How long are you going to live? Very soon, material nature will say, come on, get out. Then what are you going to do? You cannot say, give me more time. No, sir, get out. So that's how Prabhupada would discomfort those who are leading an apparently comfortable life. So Prabhupada would very often say that, oh, you have your nice bungalow and car and good wife and children, life is going on well, but how long? How long? At any moment, out. And then what will become in next life? Who knows? Right? So that's the problem with the mode of goodness. Okay, so now let's see how the man in passion is conditioned. Next verse. Rajo ragatmakam vidhi trishna sanga samudbhavam tannibadnati kaunteya karma sangena dehinam. The mode of passion is born of unlimited desires and longings of son of Kunti, and because of this, the embodied living entity is bound to material fruitive actions. Purport?
Vrinda.
The mode of passion is characterized by the attraction between man and woman. Woman has attraction for man and man has attraction for women. This is called the mode of passion. And when the mode of passion is increased, one develops the hankering for material enjoyment. He wants to enjoy sense gratification. For sense gratification, a man in the mode of passion wants some honor in society or in the nation, and he wants to have a happy family with nice children, wife, and house. These are the products of the mode of passion. As long as one is hankering after these things, he has to work very hard. Therefore, it is clearly stated here that he becomes associated with the fruits of his activities and thus becomes bound by such activities. In order to please his wife, children, and society, and to keep up his prestige, one has to work. Therefore, the whole material world is more or less in the mode of passion. Modern civilization is considered to be advanced in the standard of the mode of passion. Formerly, the advanced condition was considered to be in the mode of goodness. If there is no liberation for those in the mode of goodness, what to speak of those who are entangled in mode of passion?
Okay. So now, how the person in passion is conditioned? Trishna Sangha Samudbhavam. So there are two things, Trishna and Sangha. Sangha means what? Attachment. Attachment to what one already has. So the one in the mode of passion is very attached to whatever he has. Doesn't want to give much charity, very miserly, so very much attached to what he has because he thinks these are things for my sense gratification. They're my things. I worked so hard for it. So you find modern day people, they're saying, with the sweat of my brow, I earned all these things. I worked hard to get this wonderful house and the money and the car. I worked hard. So therefore, whatever he has becomes very attached. And so we find that as Prabhupada lectures, he says that they put signboards, beware of dogs. Trespassers will be prosecuted. Why? Because they don't want anyone to come and take anything from them. They don't want anyone to come and beg anything from them. They're not interested in giving anything to anyone. So Prabhupada says previously, sadhus would go and beg. And they would go from door to door and they would beg and people would give something. But now you can't even enter. Can't even enter. And Prabhupada is telling of his experience in the Western countries. In the Western countries, if somebody tries to enter somebody's house, he can even be shot. So that is mode of passion. Nobody wants to give anything. And Trishna. Trishna means hankering for what one does not have. Attachment to what one has and hankering for what one does not have. That is Trishna. So then, then there's so much of greed for getting so many things of the world. And for that, as Prabhupada is writing, he has to work very hard. And so that's material life, as Prabhupada is saying here, the standard of modern civilization. And Prabhupada explained that pavarga. Material life means what? Pavarga. Pa, fa, bha, bha, ma. So I suppose everyone knows that. Pa is parishram. That is the first thing. One works very hard because one wants to achieve things, one wants to get things. And if one wants to get things, one has to work hard. Nothing is going to come easy. So that is Trishna. So those are the two characteristics of the mode of passion. Condition, that he's conditioned by that. So somebody in the mode of passion is conditioned by this. He cannot sit idle. So a person in the mode of passion, you tell him, you sit and chant one round. Sitting and chanting one round will be so difficult for someone in passion. Because his mind is jumping. He can't sit. So mind is very restless. Wants to do this, wants to do that. That's more. And then when he works, karma sangena. Then the other thing is that he's attached to the work and the results of his work. So he works very hard, but then after working very hard, results are meant for me because I have worked hard, so I should enjoy the results. So that's karma sangena. So these are the characteristics of the mode of passion. So this is how the person in the mode of passion is conditioned by. Very high fruitive mentality. So any work one does, okay, what will be the fruits? What am I going to get? As they say, what's in it for me? So you tell a person mode of passion to do some work. That's the first question he's going to ask. What am I going to get in return? Oh, I have to do for free, forget it. That's passion. So fruitive mentality. Either it's money or prestige or honor, something. So there has to be some fruits. Okay, then ignorance, 8th verse. Tamastvajnanajam viddhi mohanam sarvadehinam pramadalasya nidhrabis tannibadhnati bharata. O son of Bharata, know that the mode of darkness, born of ignorance, is the delusion of all embodied living entities. The results of this mode are madness, indolence, and sleep, which bind the conditioned soul. Purport?
So I'll read. In this verse, the specific application word tu is very significant. This means that the mode of ignorance is a very peculiar qualification of the conditioned soul. The mode of ignorance is just the opposite of the mode of goodness. In the mode of goodness, by development of knowledge, one can understand what is what, but the mode of ignorance is just the opposite. Everyone under the spell of mode of ignorance becomes mad, and a madman cannot understand what is what. Instead of making advancement, one becomes degraded. The definition of the mode of ignorance is stated in Vedic literature. Vastu yathatmya jnana varakam viparyaya jnana janakam tamaha. Under the spell of ignorance, one cannot understand a thing as it is. For example, everyone can see that his grandfather has died and therefore he will also die. Man is mortal. The children that he conceives will also die. So death is sure. Still, people are madly accumulating money and working very hard all day and night, not caring for the eternal spirit. This is madness. In their madness, they are very reluctant to make advancement in spiritual understanding. Such people are very lazy. When they are invited to associate for spiritual understanding, they are not much interested. They are not even active like the man who is controlled by mode of passion. The another symptom of one embedded in mode of ignorance is that he sleeps more than is required. 6 hours of sleep is sufficient, but a man is in the mode of ignorance sleeps at least 10 or 12 hours a day. Such a man appears to be always dejected and is addicted to intoxicants and sleeping. These are symptoms of a person conditioned by mode of ignorance.
Yes. So the mode of ignorance, the word tu, as Prabhupada is saying, the word tu is significant. The word tu indicates that the mode of ignorance is diametrically opposite to the mode of goodness. As Prabhupada is writing that, the mode of ignorance is just the opposite of the mode of goodness. So here, so it said pramada, madness. That is opposite of goodness. So in goodness, he has jnana, but here pramad, no jnana, totally mad. And that's what Prabhupada is explaining here. Madman cannot understand what is what. So he cannot understand about life, he cannot understand about death. And so simply no knowledge at all. Just like animalistic life, basically. Dvipad Pashu. And here, alasya is opposite of rajogun. So in rajogun, at least the person is very active. But of course, Prabhupada says the man in rajogun is like the active monkey. Monkey is also very active all the time, throughout the day jumping from this branch, that branch, this branch, that branch. That is a mode of passion, like monkey jumping. But here, the mode of ignorance is, even that is not there. Alasya, lazy, just lying down. So Prabhupada tells a Bhakti Siddhanta Thakur story. We know that. I'm sure many of you have heard. The king who said that I will give money to the most lazy people. And then so he called all the lazy people of his kingdom. And so they gathered all of them in one house. And then after all of them gathered, then the king told his men, put the house on fire. So the king put the house on fire. Everyone ran for their lives, obviously. But then two people who still continued to lie down. And one man said, BB, back burning. He did not even say that. He just said, back burning. It's something hot is hitting my back. And the other man said, MA, move aside. So then the king said, yes, these two are really very lazy people. They're not even ready to save their lives in the fire. So anyway, so that's the point. So that's the meaning of alasya. Very lazy. And nidra is said covers both. Nidra is opposite to goodness as well as passion. So in nidra, there is, so the person is ignorant also and is wasting time also, is lazy also. So nidra is opposite to both. So that's how people in the modern age, mostly in rajas and tamas. So we see many people are in tamas, as Prabhupada, he saw the hippies and so many of these people just lying down, doing no work, just on drugs, intoxicated. So that's mode of ignorance, tamas. And as Prabhupada says in some lecture, in one lecture Prabhupada actually said, so those who are in mode of ignorance, they want to sleep 30 hours a day. So that means practically they're sleeping throughout the day. So these are the symptoms of the mode of ignorance. And then we know in Kali Yuga, Manda, Sumanda, so all these are qualities of the mode of ignorance. So total madness, no knowledge, and so therefore no interest in spiritual understanding. So that's how the people in the mode of ignorance are conditioned by. And in the 9th verse, Krishna is sort of summarizing. Sattvam sukhe sanchayati raja karmani bharata Jnanamavritya tu tamaha pramade sanjayatyuta. O son of Bharata, the mode of goodness conditions one to happiness, passion conditions one to fruit of action, and ignorance covering one's knowledge binds one to madness. So Prabhupada writes, a person in the mode of goodness, satisfied by his work or intellectual pursuit, just as philosophers, scientists, or educators may be in a particular field of knowledge and be satisfied in that. A man in the mode of passion may be engaged in fruitive activity. He owns as much as he can, spends for good causes, sometimes tries to open hospitals, gives to charity institutions. These signs of one in the mode of passion. The mode of ignorance covers knowledge. The mode of ignorance, whatever one does is good neither for him nor for anyone. So this is how the people in the three modes are conditioned by these different qualities. Okay, so we will continue our discussions tomorrow. Maybe a few questions we can take.
So Prabhuji, both from previous section and this section, around 10 questions have come in so far.
Okay, let's see how much we can answer.
So it starts from 7:50 a.m. from Ravikant Prabhu.
Where is that?
This one is, we are talking about the 24 elements in soul. It came at 7:50 a.m. Prabhuji.
No, that we already answered, no? 24 elements, so no, we didn't answer that. Okay, we're talking about 24 elements, soul, but also says soul is minute energy, Krishna is supreme energy, there's no energy to... Huh? Question not clear.
I'm unmuting him. Ravikant Prabhu, you can ask.
13th chapter, no?
This
Krishna Prabhuji.
Okay, go ahead, Emily.
Yeah, so we are talking here about the elements, 24 elements, and all the elements are cause of the material bondage and this. But actually, this energy, Krishna is the supreme energy, and Jiva is the minute energy. So how this energy is the creation of the.
Hold on. Krishna is not energy. Krishna is energetic. Krishna is energetic. He's the source of all energies.
Yeah. So all the elements, but he does not talk about anything regarding the energy. But he talks about the elements. Only the question is that.
He spoke about energies in the 7th chapter. In the 7th chapter, he spoke about 7th chapter, 4th verse, 5th verse. He spoke about para prakriti or para prakriti. He spoke all that.
But how these elements causes to produce the energy? Like that is the question. Like how these elements are, all this prakriti is produces the energy. Some are how.
Okay, fine. My request to you is you read 7th chapter verses 4 and 5. Then you'll understand. Prabhupada explains all this there. Okay? You read that first.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Also, would there not be confusion in finding the best knowledge across all subject matters till chapter 14? What confusion?
Anand Prabhuji, I'm unmuting you. You can ask.
Yeah, yes, Prabhuji. So, Lord does mention about the best knowledge subject matter wise, right? Now, like till chapter 18, which Lord has not come yet, like is there not a suspense that what is the best best knowledge across all subject matters? I mean, what is the knowledge that you should definitely possess irrespective of the subject matter?
See, ultimately all knowledge is important. But Krishna is saying, okay, this is also best knowledge because this is the best knowledge on the subject matter of Jiva and Prakriti. So I'm not very clear about your question. So you're saying again Krishna may say in some other chapter this is the best knowledge.
Yeah, that's one. And second is, like in chapter 18, it says that you surrender unto me, right? So that is something you can take away. Like that is like something that cuts across everything. So that that perspective also.
So yeah, so ultimately all knowledge is meant to lead to surrender. That is the purpose of all the knowledge. So there Krishna is giving a direct instruction to Arjuna. But then ultimately all the knowledge is meant for that purpose. All right?
Sure, Prabhu.
Okay, fine. So then...
Prabhuji, one question before that by Sakya Prem Prabhuji. I am unmuting him.
Why is he saying Bhuya? Bhuya means again. Because he already spoke. In the 13th chapter, he has already spoken about Jiva, Prakriti, already is spoken. So he's saying Bhuya again. Again, he's describing about Jiva and Prakriti. So the subject matter is the same, but then there's a further explanation. So therefore, Bhuya.
Prabhuji, my question is a little different, Prabhu. The reason I am asking that is because if you see Srimad Bhagavatam also, when incarnations are described, Krishna is first described in the avatara, in incarnation, and then later he's saying that Krishna Bhagavan Swayam, again saying that, so that to qualify that, this is the ultimate, though we are describing everything. Now, the same logic we are applying here, we are describing various knowledges, and Krishna is saying again, and then he's qualifying the superlative degree, saying that Jnanamuttamam. That means that this is the ultimate knowledge. He's trying to qualify, saying that this I described before, but I'm repeating it again.
Hare Krishna. See, you are trying to correlate what is happening in Bhagavatam and what is happening in Bhagavad Gita. No, we can't do all this. We have to accept what the acharyas are saying. We cannot say in Bhagavatam something is happening, so we cannot extrapolate because that is happening in Bhagavatam. So similar things should be there in Bhagavad Gita. We can't extrapolate all these things like that. We have to accept the acharyas' commentaries and take the meaning from the acharyas' commentaries. Otherwise, this will all be mental speculation.
Because the reason is why is qualifying again and then saying it's Uttamam, that is giving a free way, basically free pass to Gnana Yogi, is saying that it is the best among then the Bhakti Yogi, right? Technically.
So that is what the acharyas are saying when Krishna is saying this is the best of all knowledge. This is best in regards to the subject matter of Jiva and Prakriti.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Fine. Next is how can one reach basic transcendental spiritual platform without speculative endeavor in 3 modes? Okay, that will come towards the end of the chapter, transcending the modes. That time we'll discuss that. Okay, in spiritual world, if Paramatma is not with Jiva, then how Lord comes to know the Jiva's desire to enjoy independent of Hare Baba. The Lord is like you and me or what? He has to physically be present with the Jiva to understand. Without being present with the Jiva also, he can understand. Why are you limiting the Supreme Lord? Munis like Gautama, Kanarpada also arrive at various philosophical conclusions which differ the original conclusion of Vyasadeva. Yeah, so they are all mental speculative philosophies. Therefore, they are atheistic philosophies. They are not theistic philosophies. Most of them are based on mental speculation. In fact, the only one which is based on, which is theistic, bona fide, is that given by Vyasadeva. Others, all others are speculative. Okay, in the previous chapter, we learned that nature is the cause of all material, but Jiva is the ultimate cause. Your Supreme Lord is mentioned as the cause of birth. Yeah, so the Supreme Lord, he is glancing over Prakriti, is activating, and then the Jivas ascend into Prakriti, and then Prakriti gives the bodies. So that's what we discussed. Prakriti gives the bodies. But why Prakriti is giving bodies? Why the Jivas are sent to material world? Because the Jiva desired. What is the big difficulty to understand? Jiva desired, therefore is given a material body in Prakriti.
He says okay.
Why Prabhupada uses the word living entity instead of spiritual? What is the difference between the two? Both are same. Scientists and philosophers know of goodness, but they don't have knowledge with regard to Vedic people. Yeah, but some knowledge they have. Scientists, philosophers, they also are studying about the material elements. So basically, they deal with material elements only. Prabhupada says scientists, they're dealing with material elements. So they have some knowledge of material elements. Of course, modern day scientists, previously scientists were at least somewhat theistic. These days, modern day scientists, though, useless. They are simply in passion, actually. Previously, scientists were better. Yes, so one advanced in knowledge of Vedangas, all that. Yeah, they're all in goodness.
Okay, bro.
No mode in material world is pure. Yeah, and so that's what we're saying. No mode is pure. There's no pure goodness, pure passion, pure ignorance. In the material world, everything is mixed. Only this predominance of one. When a person in passion not able to sit in one place and chant with unstable mind. Okay, that we will come to that later on. Often we a monkey's example for passion, but told cow was Brahmana and tiger was this person. Well, these animals are simply prototypes of being influenced by different modes. It's not necessary that the cow will immediately become a Brahmana or the tiger will immediately become a human being in the mode of passion. But they are prototypes of the three modes, and there's a good possibility that when that tiger will become a human being, we don't know. But if at all the tiger becomes a human being because of the influence of the mode of passion, then even in human life, he may be influenced by mode of passion. There's a possibility. Now, these are not rules that the monkey will have to become a human being. When the monkey will become human being, how many births in between it will take, who knows? It's not that immediately the monkey is going to become human. Is it all right?
Okay, Boo.
Person passion opens hospitals, gives charity. Well, for what he does that? He does that for his name and fame. He's attached to his name and fame. That is why he does. Is this also comes under goodness? Yes. I'm not the body, soul is Sattva Gunya. First step of spiritual knowledge is to understand I am part and parcel of God. Surrender can come by faith, knowledge. Can it come by... that we will discuss later. Okay, fine. Later on. Okay, fine. So we're ending. We have all crossed time.
Prabhuji, there's one last question. That is Shrikant Srinivas. He had asked it last time. That time we had postponed it.
What is that?
Fear and anxiety are due to mode of ignorance, he's asking.
Where is it?
It's in the end, Prabhuji. Second last question in the end. By Shrikant Srinivas, Prabhuji.
Okay, fear and anxiety are due to mode of ignorance. Yes. Anyway, we're going to discuss more about the modes. This is only the beginning of the chapter. More is going to come later on. Okay, fine. We're ending here.
Okay.
Okay, so thank you all very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Samet Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki jai. So we'll continue and we'll try to finish the 14th chapter tomorrow.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much.